It was the beginning of autumn in New York. The sun was still timidly rising, reflecting off the mirrored windows of the skyscrapers. While the city rushed with its usual frenzy, inside the luxurious Golden Palace restaurant, everything seemed to shine. Crystal chandeliers lit up the hall, tables were covered with immaculate linen cloths, and silverware was aligned like soldiers in formation. This was no ordinary place. It was a space reserved for the powerful and important, politicians, businessmen, celebrities. Every detail, from the subtle aroma of fresh flowers to the elegant silence in the corridors, whispered the same message. Here, luxury was the rule. Yet, in that grand setting, a young woman walked carefully, almost as if she were afraid to disturb the floor beneath her feet. Amelia, 23 years old, Black, the daughter of a housemaid and a construction worker who had already passed away, had just achieved what for her was both a dream and a burden, a job as a waitress at the most sophisticated restaurant in the city. That morning, standing in front of the mirror in the small locker room, Amelia adjusted her uniform. The white shirt was neatly pressed, the black vest squeezed against her thin chest, and the bow tie seemed far too big for her delicate neck. She took a deep breath as if trying to summon courage. "This is going to work," she whispered to herself. "Mom always said that work is a blessing. I just need to be strong." With the memory of her mother echoing in her mind, a woman of faith who always reminded her that God never abandons the righteous, Amelia stepped into the dining hall with a shy smile. But she immediately noticed something uncomfortable. No one truly saw her. The older waiters rushed past her without saying a word. Some looked her up and down with disdain. Others acted as if she simply didn't exist. At the counter, two colleagues whispered, trying not to laugh too loudly, "Look at the new girl. She looks like she's never held a tray before. Yeah, I bet she won't last a week." Amelia heard every word but pretended not to. She grabbed a clean cloth and began polishing the crystal glasses with such care as if she were handling something sacred. It was her way of resisting, to work in silence, giving them no reason to claim she wasn't capable. Meanwhile, one of the senior waiters, Brian, walked over and muttered, "Hey girl, you're cleaning those wrong. These glasses are expensive. Break one and that's half your paycheck. Got it?" She only nodded, even though she knew she was doing it exactly as she had been taught. Amelia didn't want trouble. She understood that for many there, her presence was already a nuisance. With each step she took in the hall, the weight of invisibility grew heavier. She poured water, set tables, cleared plates, and through it all, it was as if she were only a shadow passing by. No one asked her name, no one thanked her, no one cared. But within her there was something no one there could ever imagine. A hidden flame. Amelia was not just a timid waitress. She carried within her a silent gift, a powerful secret that at the right time would force every single gaze to turn toward her. And in that very restaurant, where today she was treated as invisible, one day she would become the center of attention. Before we continue, I'd love to know where you're watching from today. And if you're enjoying these stories, make sure you're subscribed to the channel. The lunch shift had just begun at the Golden Palace. The large doors opened and the wealthy clientele slowly filled the golden-hued dining room. Expensive perfumes mixed with the aroma of gourmet dishes, while laughter and the clinking of wine glasses echoed through the air. Amelia stood at the side, holding a silver tray close to her chest. Her heart beat faster every time a new table was seated. She wanted to do well, to prove she could belong in this world of perfection and elegance. But she also knew that people like her, a young black waitress from a modest neighborhood, were often not welcomed in places like this. One of her first tables of the day was a group of 3 wealthy women, all elegantly dressed, dripping with jewels. Their manicured hands held designer handbags, and they spoke in loud voices as if the restaurant belonged to them. As Amelia approached with a polite smile, she gently asked, "Good afternoon, ladies. May I start you off with something to drink?" The women looked at each other and then burst into laughter. One of them, a tall blonde with a sharp gaze, tilted her head and said, "Oh, how cute. She tries so hard to sound fancy." Another added, mocking, "Sweetheart, maybe just bring us water. Don't strain yourself with the menu, okay?" The third whispered something Amelia couldn't fully catch, but she heard the words, "Looks like she doesn't belong here." The three laughed together, not caring that Amelia was standing right there. Her hands tightened around the tray, but she kept her composure. She forced a smile, nodded, and walked toward the bar to get their drinks. As she set the glasses of water on the table, one of the women leaned toward her and asked in a condescending tone, "Tell me, dear, did you even finish high school? Or did they just put you here because they needed someone cheap?" The question stung like a knife. Around them, some waiters overheard and snickered quietly. Amelia lowered her eyes, whispered, "Yes, ma'am," and stepped back, swallowing the lump in her throat. But the humiliation wasn't over. When Amelia returned later with their appetizers, one of the women intentionally moved her handbag closer and whispered loudly enough for everyone nearby to hear, "Careful with my purse, you know how it is." The implication was clear. They saw her not only as unworthy, but also untrustworthy. Nearby, two of Amelia's co-workers chuckled, exchanging glances as if enjoying the show. She felt her cheeks burn, but she refused to cry. Inside, however, she prayed silently, "Lord, give me strength. Don't let me break here. I know you see everything they do to me." For the rest of that shift, Amelia kept serving table after table, enduring stares, whispers, and the heavy silence that made her feel smaller than she already did. She was invisible when they ignored her, and humiliated when they finally noticed her. What no one realized was that every cruel word, every mocking laugh, was only pushing Amelia closer to the moment when the truth would be revealed, and when all those same mouths would fall silent. The day had already been long, and Amelia's feet ached from walking back and forth across the polished marble floors of the Golden Palace. She had endured mocking clients, whispers behind her back, and the heavy silence of her colleagues who treated her as if she were invisible. But the greatest test of her patience was yet to come. Shortly after the lunch rush, Mrs. Evelyn Bradford, the owner of the restaurant, arrived. Everyone in the staff straightened their backs, lowered their heads, and moved quickly. Mrs. Bradford was known for her elegance and her cruelty. She was a woman in her mid-50s, with perfectly styled blonde hair, diamond earrings that sparkled under the chandeliers, and a sharp look that could silence a room. To outsiders, she appeared sophisticated, a true lady of society. But to her employees, she was a storm waiting to strike. As soon as she entered, she began inspecting every detail. The napkins are folded incorrectly. That painting is crooked. Why is the service so slow today? Everyone trembled at her words. Amelia, who was carefully carrying a tray with a bottle of wine and 2 glasses, prayed she wouldn't draw the woman's attention. But fate, as always, had other plans. Mrs. Bradford's eyes landed on her. She narrowed her gaze and motioned for Amelia to come closer. "You there, new girl, what's your name?" Amelia hesitated for a moment, then answered softly, "Amelia, ma'am." The woman raised an eyebrow, her lips curling in disdain. "Amelia? You don't look like an Amelia. More like someone who should be cleaning floors, not serving my clients." A few waiters nearby chuckled quietly. Amelia lowered her head, gripping the tray tighter to stop her hands from trembling. Mrs. Bradford circled her slowly, like a predator examining prey. "Tell me, Amelia, do you even know how to speak properly? This is not some cheap diner in the Bronx. This is the Golden Palace. My clients expect excellence, not mediocrity." The words cut deep. Amelia felt her chest tighten, but she forced herself to answer politely, "Yes, ma'am, I will do my best." Mrs. Bradford smirked. "Your best? We'll see how long that lasts. Around here, being just a waitress means nothing. If you want to survive, you must learn to stay invisible and silent. Clients don't come here to see you. They come here for the experience. Do you understand?" The humiliation echoed across the hall. Some of the other waiters avoided looking at Amelia, while others grinned as if enjoying the show. Amelia nodded quietly, whispering, "Yes, ma'am." Mrs. Bradford turned sharply and clapped her hands, barking orders to the rest of the staff. But before leaving, she threw one last poisonous remark over her shoulder. Remember, Amelia, you're just a waitress. Nothing more. Don't try to act like you're something else. Amelia stood frozen, the tray still in her hands, her heart pounding. Every fiber of her being wanted to scream, to tell the truth she had hidden all this time. But instead she swallowed her pain and whispered a prayer inside her heart. Lord, I know you see this. Give me patience. One day, the truth will come out. And though Evelyn Bradford thought she had crushed the girl with her words, she had unknowingly planted the seed of her own downfall. For the very thing she despised most in Amelia was the same gift that would one day expose her arrogance before everyone. The dinner service at the Golden Palace was the most demanding part of the day. The wealthy clientele filled every table, waiters rushed back and forth, and the atmosphere buzzed with the sound of expensive conversations, business deals, stock market news, and extravagant vacation plans. Amelia kept her head down, carrying trays and filling glasses. She tried to stay unnoticed, knowing that one wrong step could become another humiliation. At one table near the large windows overlooking the city lights, a distinguished-looking man in a tailored suit was struggling. He waved his hands as he spoke, trying to communicate with the waiter assigned to him, Brian, the same colleague who had mocked Amelia earlier. The man's accent was thick, his words broken. He was clearly foreign. Perhaps from Europe. Brian leaned closer, frowning. I'm sorry, sir, I don't understand. The man repeated himself, this time gesturing toward the menu. His frustration grew, his voice louder with each attempt. Guests at nearby tables began to notice. Amelia froze as she walked past. Her heart beat faster. She recognized the language immediately. It was French. She had studied it for years in secret, late at night, with borrowed books and free online classes. She knew exactly what the man was asking for. For a brief moment, she felt a spark of courage. She could step forward, help, and prove that she was more than just a waitress. But before she could open her mouth, Mrs. Bradford appeared like a shadow. What's going on here? She demanded. Brian, embarrassed, shrugged. The gentleman doesn't speak English very well, ma'am. The foreigner tried again, his words stumbling, his face red with frustration. Amelia's lips parted. She could translate. She could fix this. But then Mrs. Bradford's sharp eyes landed on her. And you, Amelia. Don't just stand there, keep moving, this is none of your concern. Amelia froze, the courage draining from her chest. She bowed her head and stepped back, clutching the tray in her hands so tightly her knuckles turned white. Mrs. Bradford leaned toward the guest, speaking loudly as if volume could replace understanding. Do you want wine, red or white? Some guests nearby chuckled at the awkward scene. The foreigner sighed, frustrated, and simply pointed at a random dish on the menu. Mrs. Bradford forced a smile, pretending all was fine, before turning to Brian. Handle it. And someone make sure he pays attention next time. As Amelia walked away, shame and anger swirled inside her. She knew the exact words the man had spoken. She could have solved the problem in seconds, spared him the embarrassment, and maybe even earned some respect. Instead, she was silenced, denied the chance to show who she really was. Back in the staff corridor, Amelia leaned against the wall for a moment, closing her eyes. Tears welled up, but she blinked them back. Lord, why do you keep me quiet when I have so much to give? But deep down, she knew the answer. Sometimes God allows silence before the storm. And when the moment came, the truth would explode louder than anyone could imagine. For now, Amelia walked back into the dining hall, invisible once again. But her moment was coming, and it would be unforgettable. The next evening, the Golden Palace pulsed with a nervous energy that even Amelia could feel. The staff hurried more than usual, voices hushed, steps quicker. Something was different. In the break room, Brian whispered to another waiter, Did you hear? Someone big is coming tonight. A real VIP. Yeah, the owner herself has been pacing around all afternoon. Must be serious. Amelia adjusted her apron quietly, listening without daring to ask. She had learned that in this place questions from her were often met with glares or silence. Still, curiosity gnawed at her. When she stepped into the dining hall, she saw it. The restaurant had been prepared for someone special. A private corner had been arranged with fresh roses, candles, and the finest crystal glasses. Even the cutlery shone brighter, as if polished twice. Then, the doors opened. A tall man entered, his presence commanding immediate attention. He wore a simple yet impeccably tailored suit, no flashy jewelry, no entourage, but something about him radiated authority. His salt and pepper hair, his calm, confident steps, and the way he observed everything with sharp eyes made the entire staff stand straighter. Amelia noticed how quickly Mrs. Evelyn Bradford rushed forward, her heels clicking against the marble. She greeted him with a smile so wide it looked painful. "Mr. Laurent, what an honor to have you here at the Golden Palace." Whispers spread among the waiters. "Laurent? Is that the French CEO? The billionaire investor?" Amelia's heart skipped a beat. She knew that name. She had read about him in an article once, a man who spoke little English and preferred to communicate in French or other European languages. As Mr. Laurent sat down, Mrs. Bradford fussed over every detail. She personally handed him the menu, motioned for the best bottle of wine to be opened, and instructed the staff to treat him like royalty. Amelia kept her distance, balancing trays of food for other tables. Yet her eyes wandered again and again to the mysterious guest. He seemed polite but reserved, speaking softly in French to himself as he scanned the menu. Brian was assigned to serve him. Amelia watched as he tried to engage the CEO in English, fumbling badly. "Mr. Laurent responded briefly in French, his tone patient but clearly strained. Amelia's fingers twitched against the tray. Every word he spoke was clear to her, as if someone had translated them in her ear. She wanted to step forward, to bridge the gap. But Mrs. Bradford's warning echoed in her mind. "Stay invisible. Clients don't come here to see you." So she swallowed her impulse and kept walking. Across the hall, she overheard two wealthy clients at another table whispering, "Do you see who that is?" "Of course. He's here to evaluate investments in New York. Whoever wins his favor will become very rich." Suddenly, everything made sense. This wasn't just an important guest. This was a man whose opinion could change the fate of businesses, whose signature on a contract could make or break fortunes. And yet Amelia noticed something no one else seemed to. The slight frustration in his eyes, the lonely way he sipped his wine, the effort it took for him to be understood. He looked like a man surrounded by luxury but isolated by language. And though Amelia remained silent, something inside her whispered, "Your moment is coming. Don't be afraid." Little did she know, the stage was being set for the night when the invisible waitress would outshine everyone. The atmosphere inside the Golden Palace was heavier than ever. The staff moved quickly, whispering orders, polishing glasses a third time, straightening napkins that were already perfect. All because of one man, Mr. Laurent, the CEO from overseas. Every waiter wanted to impress. Every chef pushed for perfection. And Mrs. Evelyn Bradford, the owner, hovered around like a hawk, making sure no one dared to disappoint. Amelia tried to blend into the background. She carried trays, refilled glasses, and avoided eye contact, praying she wouldn't draw attention. But fate had other plans. At one moment, she was assigned to bring a fresh basket of bread to Mr. Laurent's table. Her hands trembled slightly as she approached. The polished silver tray gleamed under the chandelier lights. She took slow, careful steps. But just as she reached his table, one of the senior waiters, accidentally, brushed against her shoulder. The tray wobbled. A piece of bread slipped out and landed softly on the floor. The dining hall went silent. Mrs. Bradford's eyes shot across the room like daggers. She stormed forward, her heels clicking against the marble floor. "Amelia!" Her voice cracked like a whip. "What do you think you're doing?" Amelia froze, her heart pounding. She bent down quickly to pick up the fallen bread, her face burning. I'm so sorry, ma'am. But Mrs. Bradford wasn't interested in apologies. She turned to Mr. Laurent, her voice syrupy sweet. Please forgive her, sir. She's new, still learning. Though frankly, I don't know if she's cut out for this kind of establishment. The words echoed like poison. Some guests chuckled quietly. Others shook their heads, murmuring. Amelia felt the weight of every stare pressing down on her. Brian, standing nearby, smirked and whispered to another waiter, "Told you she wouldn't last." Amelia's hands shook as she placed the rest of the bread basket on the table. Mr. Laurent looked at her curiously, not with mockery but with something else. His sharp eyes lingered as if he sensed there was more to her than the humiliation unfolding before him. But before she could move away, Mrs. Bradford leaned close, her voice low but sharp enough for Amelia to hear. "This is your last warning. Embarrass me again, and you're gone." Amelia nodded, swallowing hard. She turned and walked away quickly, blinking back tears. She retreated into the staff corridor where no one could see her pain. Leaning against the wall, she whispered a prayer, her voice trembling. "Lord, I don't understand why this keeps happening, but I trust you. If this is your test, give me strength to endure it." Back in the dining hall, the laughter, conversations, and music continued as if nothing had happened. But Mr. Laurent's gaze followed Amelia as she disappeared behind the doors. For the first time, the invisible waitress had been noticed, not for her gift, but for her humiliation. Yet that moment had also planted a silent question in the CEO's mind. Who is she, really? The night at the Golden Palace grew more intense as the courses continued. Laughter filled the air, champagne glasses clinked, and the orchestra played softly in the background. Every table brimmed with wealth and vanity. At the corner table, Mr. Laurent, the French CEO, sat quietly, observing everything with the sharp eyes of a man used to reading people. He had been polite, patient, but clearly uneasy. More than once, he had tried to speak to the staff in French, only to be met with blank stares or awkward smiles. Mrs. Evelyn Bradford hovered nearby, desperate to impress. She spoke to him in broken English, forcing exaggerated smiles and gestures. "Everything perfect for you tonight, Mr. Laurent?" He nodded courteously but said little. His words, when he did speak, were soft and in French. No one around him understood. At one point, he asked a simple question about the dish in front of him. His French was clear, direct. But Brian, the waiter assigned to his table, froze. He glanced at Mrs. Bradford, panicked. I don't know what he said." Mrs. Bradford's face tightened. She leaned toward Mr. Laurent, speaking louder as if volume would solve the barrier. "Yes. Food. Very good. You like?" A ripple of muffled laughter spread among nearby tables. The humiliation wasn't directed at her this time, but the air was thick with discomfort. Mr. Laurent sighed, shaking his head slightly, before returning to his meal. In the distance, Amelia stood frozen, balancing a tray of empty glasses. Every word Mr. Laurent had spoken was crystal clear to her. She had studied French late at night in her small apartment, repeating phrases softly until they became second nature. She knew exactly what he had asked. Her lips parted, her heart pounding in her chest. This was her chance. This was the moment she had prayed for. But then Mrs. Bradford's voice cut through the air, sharp and commanding. "Amelia, stop standing there like a statue. Move." The young waitress lowered her eyes and stepped back, her tray trembling in her hands. Fear gripped her. What if she spoke and was fired on the spot? Still, the words burned inside her, desperate to come out. For the first time, she realized that God was not just testing her patience. He was opening a door. Her pulse raced, her throat dry. She whispered to herself, so low no one else could hear, "This is it. Lord, give me courage." At that exact moment, Mr. Laurent spoke again, this time switching languages, from French to Italian. His voice carried across the hall, smooth and precise, but once again not a single soul understood. Confusion spread. Waiters glanced at one another helplessly. Mrs. Bradford laughed nervously, fanning herself with a menu as though trying to mask her ignorance. And Amelia felt it, the silent pull of destiny. For too long she had been invisible. For too long she had swallowed humiliation. But now, before the most powerful man in the room, silence was no longer an option. Slowly, with her heart pounding like thunder, Amelia stepped forward. The dining hall was silent for a moment, the kind of silence that comes when power meets confusion. Mr. Laurent had just spoken in Italian, and once again, no one understood him. The waiters looked lost. Mrs. Bradford forced a laugh to cover her embarrassment, and the guests began to exchange whispers. Doesn't anyone here understand him? How can such an expensive restaurant not have staff who speak his language? This is disgraceful. The murmurs grew, and Mrs. Bradford's face flushed crimson. She turned sharply toward the staff, her voice slicing through the tension. Someone do something. And then it happened. Amelia, clutching her tray, took a step forward. Her knees shook, her palms were sweaty, but her voice, when it came, was clear, calm, and steady. Mi scusi, signore. Vuole sapere se il piatto contiene formaggio, giusto? The entire room froze. Every head turned toward her. Brian blinked in disbelief. Mrs. Bradford's mouth dropped open, and Mr. Laurent's eyes lit up for the first time that night. Oui, exactement, he exclaimed, switching back to French. C'est exactement ce que je demandais. Yes, exactly. That's what I was asking. Amelia smiled gently and replied, fluent in French as if she had been born to it. Le plat contient du fromage, monsieur, mais si vous préférez, le chef peut préparer une alternative sans. The dish does contain cheese, sir, but if you prefer, the chef can prepare an alternative without it. Gasps filled the hall. Mrs. Bradford's face twisted with shock. Brian nearly dropped the wine bottle he was holding. The guests leaned closer, whispering furiously. Did she just... She speaks French and Italian? But Amelia wasn't finished. Mr. Laurent's eyes sparkled with amusement. Testing her, he switched languages again, this time into Spanish. ¿Y qué me recomienda, señorita? ¿Cuál es el mejor plato de esta casa? And what do you recommend, miss? What is the best dish here? Without hesitation, Amelia replied in flawless Spanish, her voice smooth and confident. Le recomiendo el filete con salsa de vino tinto, señor. Es la especialidad de la casa y combina perfectamente con el vino que ha pedido. I recommend the steak with red wine sauce, sir. It's the house specialty and pairs perfectly with the wine you ordered. The whispers turned into open astonishment. Guests craned their necks to see the young waitress who had been invisible just moments ago. And then, with a mischievous smile, Mr. Laurent shifted once more, this time into German. Und wenn ich kein Fleisch essen möchte? And if I don't want to eat meat? Amelia took a breath, her heart racing, but her answer flowed with grace. Kein Problem, Herr Laurent. Wir haben ausgezeichnete vegetarische Gerichte. Ich empfehle die Pasta Primavera. No problem, Mr. Laurent. We have excellent vegetarian dishes. I recommend the Pasta Primavera. By now, jaws were dropping across the dining hall. People who had mocked her earlier sat in stunned silence. And for her final act, Amelia added one more language. English, her voice steady, strong, and clear. Or if you prefer, sir, I can ask the chef to create something special, just for you. The room erupted in applause. Guests clapped at their tables, some even standing to get a better look. Mr. Laurent laughed warmly, delighted, and rose to his feet. He extended his hand toward Amelia, his voice full of admiration. Bravo, mademoiselle, 5 languages, and with such elegance, extraordinary. For the first time, Amelia wasn't invisible. She was the center of attention. The waitress they had mocked, humiliated, and silenced had just outshined them all. And in that moment, the balance of power in the Golden Palace shifted forever. The dining hall was still buzzing with excitement. Guests whispered, some clapped, and others simply stared at Amelia as if they had never seen her before. Moments ago, she was invisible, just a waitress. Now she stood in the center of the golden-lit room, her presence undeniable. Mr. Laurent remained standing, his tall frame commanding attention. His eyes gleamed with curiosity and admiration. He held Amelia's hand for a brief moment, then turned to the crowd. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said in French, before switching slowly into English so that everyone could understand, "I came to this restaurant tonight expecting fine food and service, but what I found instead was talent, true talent, hidden in plain sight." The room fell silent again, the applause fading into eager attention. Mrs. Evelyn Bradford shifted uncomfortably, forcing a stiff smile. "Oh, Mr. Laurent, how wonderful that our staff could amuse you," she said, her voice trembling, but Laurent's gaze turned cold as he faced her. "Amuse me?" he repeated. "Madame, do you not realize what you have here?" The question cut like a blade. Evelyn's lips parted, but no words came. Turning back to Amelia, Laurent asked kindly, "Tell me, young lady, where did you learn all these languages?" Amelia hesitated, every eye in the room piercing her. Then she lifted her chin, her voice steady. "At night, after work, after school, I borrowed books, watched lessons online. I studied because I always believed knowledge could open doors." A murmur spread through the crowd. Some nodded in approval, others whispered in awe. Mr. Laurent smiled, impressed. "So while others slept, you worked. You sacrificed to learn. That is the mark of greatness." Evelyn tried to interject, her voice sharp. "She's just a waitress. She's lucky to even be here." Speaking a few words doesn't change. But Laurent raised his hand, silencing her instantly. His voice grew firm, carrying authority. "Enough. This young woman deserves respect. Far more respect than she has been given here tonight." The staff exchanged nervous glances. Brian shifted uncomfortably, the smirk gone from his face. The wealthy women who had mocked Amelia earlier lowered their eyes, ashamed. Laurent continued, his voice now directed at everyone. "Do you see what happens when you judge someone by their uniform, their skin, their place in life? You blind yourselves to their true value." The words struck like thunder. Some guests clapped again, louder this time. Others bowed their heads, realizing the lesson unfolding before them. Amelia stood still, her eyes glistening. For the first time, she wasn't shrinking under humiliation. She was standing tall, seen, heard, and honored. Laurent leaned closer and said softly, but loud enough for the room to hear, "Amelia, you are not just a waitress. You are a woman of intelligence, perseverance, and dignity. Never let anyone make you feel less than that." Tears welled up in her eyes, but this time they weren't from pain. They were from vindication. And as she whispered, "Thank you, sir," the entire room erupted in applause again, louder, longer, echoing like justice finally spoken aloud. The applause slowly faded, but the weight of the moment lingered in the golden-lit dining hall of the Golden Palace. Every guest, every waiter, every whisper of arrogance from the past now seemed small, silenced in the face of Amelia's brilliance. But the night's story wasn't finished. Justice still had a role to play. Mrs. Evelyn Bradford, her pride shattered, tried to regain control. Straightening her posture, she forced a brittle smile. "Well, I'm sure this little display was entertaining, but let's not forget she still works for me. This is a fine restaurant, not a classroom. We don't need theatrics here." Her words sliced the air, dripping with venom. But before anyone could respond, Mr. Laurent turned to face her, his gaze colder than steel. "Madame Bradford, you have just shown the world the very arrogance that blinds so many leaders. You looked at this young woman and saw just a waitress. You mocked her, you silenced her, you humiliated her. And yet, she is the one who saved your reputation tonight." Gasps spread across the room. The truth was out in the open, undeniable. Brian, the waiter who had ridiculed Amelia since her first day, lowered his head. The wealthy women who had mocked her earlier suddenly became fascinated with their plates, avoiding her eyes. One by one, their pride collapsed in silence. Laurent continued, his voice rising with conviction. "If this establishment prides itself on excellence, then know this. True excellence is not in chandeliers or silverware. It is in people, in their spirit, their dedication, their courage. And tonight Amelia has shown more excellence than anyone else in this room. Applause erupted once more, louder, stronger, this time from nearly every guest. Some even stood, clapping with admiration. Amelia's heart raced. She felt her knees weaken, but she stood tall, her hands clasped together as silent tears streamed down her face. For years, she had prayed in secret, whispered words of faith in the quiet of her small room. And now, before the powerful and the proud, God was answering. Laurent smiled warmly at her. Amelia, I came here tonight seeking fine cuisine, but I leave having discovered something far greater. Talent. I would like to offer you a position with my company. We need people like you. Intelligent, multilingual, dedicated. Your place is not in the shadows, your place is in the light. The hall erupted in astonishment. Some gasped, others clapped, and a few even shouted in celebration. Mrs. Bradford staggered back, her face pale. You can't just take my employee, she snapped. Laurent turned to her calmly. No, madame. You gave her away the moment you treated her as less than human. People like Amelia don't belong under the feet of the arrogant. They belong in places where their gifts are valued. Evelyn's mouth opened, then closed. She had no defense left. Her empire of pride crumbled before everyone's eyes. Amelia clasped her trembling hands together, whispering softly, "Thank you, Lord. You never abandoned me." And in that sacred silence she felt it. Not just the applause of strangers, but the gentle embrace of divine justice. From that night forward, the name Amelia was no longer forgotten in the corridors of the Golden Palace. Her story spread like fire through the city, the story of the invisible waitress who spoke 5 languages and silenced the arrogant. And though the chandeliers still sparkled, and the wealthy still dined, one truth remained etched in every heart that had witnessed that night. The humble will be lifted, the proud will fall, and justice, though it may delay, always arrives.